So welcome and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our PARSEC User and Technology Talk. It's actually the last session of our series of User and Technology Talks. So it's a pleasure to have you all here. And this session, this meeting today is dedicated to food sector, and we're meeting today with the representatives of the food sector. So welcome, everyone. We're starting slowly today with a short guide, of course, especially for the ones who are joining us for the first time. You have an option to ask your questions in Q&A section, which you should be able to see. They will all be answered by the end of the session, so before 12. Also, you have an option to comment and interact with our panelists through the chat, and also with other attendees. They also can see the chat, so please feel free to comment. And of course, as always, we invite you to share that on social media that you're here. Use our PARSEC hashtag. And especially for the ones who are new to PARSEC today and who are meeting with us for the first time, just one sentence about PARSEC Accelerator, who are we and what are we actually doing here today. So PARSEC is an acceleration program helping SMEs from food, energy, and environment sectors to develop their new Earth observation-based solutions. We started with our program in 2019, working with selecting 100 companies. So actually we started with them in 2020, giving them support platforms, Earth observation platforms to facilitate the work, facilitate the networking, to support them with training. And last year we selected 15 best international cross-border, cross-sectoral teams who are currently working on their new Earth observation-based solutions for these three sectors. And today you will have a pleasure to meet a few of them working with food sector and developing new solutions for the food sector. And what is actually the user and technology talk series and what we'll be discussing today? So basically the idea is that we're getting to know the food sector better. We want to ask questions to our food sector representatives, get to know what is happening in the sector, what are the problems, what are the challenges. And with our Earth observation representatives and with our PARSEC beneficiaries, we'll try to get some answers and find new solutions how to help the food sector. So for the moment, that's all from my side. And I will give the floor to our moderator, Eleftheris Mamais from Evenflow, who will guide you through the session today.
Thanks a lot, Veronica. A very good morning to everyone. I'll just now share my screen and you can see a little bit about the flow of the discussion as we have foreseen it. I hope that this can work properly. Just take a second. Let's try it again. Okay. And now you should be seeing a nice full screen with a few things on them. So again, good morning. My name is Eleftheris Mamais. I'm co-founder and director at Evenflow. We are a partner in PARSEC, and we have quite a long track record on the use of EO and GNSS in precision agriculture and other aspects of agriculture. So I'm very happy to be moderating the discussion today. Here you can see basically the 5 points on how the discussion will be structured. So we have the pleasure of having with us a few very interesting people and experts on different actually angles around food production. We will get into that in a minute. Following a sort of round of exchanges between myself and them, we will have an EO expert from Vito commenting on the points that have been raised, the challenges that have been shared. And after that, we will sort of move from the demand side, from the supply side into the demand side, and go again on what the PARSEC startups can do to help the demand side. So you will see Space for Fauna, Cotton Assurance, and Polaris pitch their solutions. Ideally, throughout these different steps, we would have a rather dynamic discussion. So again, I reiterate what Veronica said. We invite you and encourage you to share questions throughout the whole session on the Q&A. And I think now we can actually start the part, introducing first our esteemed colleagues here. So I'm very happy to introduce Enrique Molto. He's head of the Remote Sensing Research Group at EVIA. Hi, Enrique.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this meeting.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to have you. Then I would pass the floor quickly to Mark Hall. He's head of sustainability and responsible business, and also representing CropLife. You see two logos there. So at Syngenta, but representing CropLife as well.
Hi, everybody. Look forward to the discussion today, and look forward to telling you a little bit about what we're looking at right now and how that applies to this discussion.
Excellent. And finally, our good friend Gedas Vaitkus from Geomatrix.
Hello, Gedas Vaitkus from Geomatrix. We are one of the companies in this project, but also for 10 years doing services on agriculture, last 5 years on agriculture specifically from Sentinels. And so it's our innovation and our business model and everything is, and all the mistakes and all the victories in this field, a lot of things really to share with you if you are interested in.
Excellent. We are really looking forward to that, Gedas. So maybe before I actually start with the rounds of questions, Mark and Enrique, just to tell us a few quick words about your activities in the sector. So maybe Mark, you start and we end this round with Enrique.
I've got a couple of slides if you want me to quickly run through just a quick introduction.
Yeah, sure, you can go quickly through that. Why not?
Great. Let me find them. I just need to stop the screen, or I'm requesting to stop the screen sharing.
So I stop my share. Normally you should have the rights to share your screen.
Yeah, great. Okay. So my main representation here today is to represent CropLife Europe. Now, CropLife Europe is the industry body that represents the R&D driven portion of the crop protection industry in Europe. It is actually a reflection of the whole industry and all of the R&D aspects that cover the crop protection industry. So there's 22 companies across 32 national associations. So there's individual national associations that feed into CropLife Europe, and it covers about 26,000 people that work within the crop protection sector in Europe. We are advocates for policies and legislation that foster innovation, and we want to promote good agricultural practices that that are complemented by crop protection solutions. So we want to promote safe and affordable food. We want to help protect water, enhance biodiversity, and protect the health of farmers and the public. That may be contrary to some impressions about our industry, but all of our industry are united in being dedicated towards sustainable agriculture and for looking for technology and research and development innovations around how we can make agriculture much more sustainable, less damaging to the environment, and yet still productive in making quality food for our people. There are the key corporate members, the big players in the industry. There are also a number of small and medium-sized enterprise members within the industry, all providers of crop protection products to the European markets. And then there are the national associations which lobby and put the agenda forward on an individual country governmental basis. And of course, there's a lot of media communication with that. There are a number of associated member associations. Of course, the Crop Protection Association in the United Kingdom used to be within the European part, but the associated ones sit just outside the European Union. We value openness, proactivity, cooperation, responsibility, and transparency. And particularly around the responsibility, the safe and sustainable use of our products, the stewardship of our products, the education and training for people using our products and bystanders is an important part. So we want, as a new organisation which has moved on from what was the old Crop Protection Association for Europe, we're now much more focused on widening our agenda towards new innovations, biopesticides, biologicals, new plant biotechnologies, digital and precision agricultural technologies, so that we can help to make agriculture more sustainable. So, and that means protecting water, providing affordable food, enhancing biodiversity, and not destroying biodiversity. We want to add to our agricultural landscapes and make sure that we safeguard the health of all humans as well as farmers and particularly users of our products. And we want to turn around the public trust in our industry through new technologies and through setting much better standards for the environmental and economic imbalances that there probably are right now in the industry. So I hope that gives you a little bit of background. I'm sitting here today mainly as an industry representative rather than just a Syngenta representative.
Excellent.
Okay.
No, absolutely. And thanks for sharing this sort of more detailed presentation. And I think it's actually a nice segue to what Enrique and Evie are doing. So maybe Enrique, you can tell us a few words as well.
Hi. Well, I work, as you said, in IVIA, which is a public research institute in Valencia, in Spain. So my point of view is quite different from what has been, and I think it's complementary for the discussion that we are going to have this morning. This institute is 150 years old, and it has been devoted during all this time to applied research and advice to the primary production. So we are focused in the production of food, of primary food, not in the industry. There are other centers here in Valencia that work in industry. We are in very close contact with the growers associations here in Valencia and in Spain, and we are about 200 people working in this research center. We cover everything of the production chain. So we have knowledge, and we have research centers in genomics, in fruit and vegetable breeding production, in plant protection, in irrigation, bioeconomy, and agricultural engineering, and post-harvest and animal production. But I think that I am here in order to represent the part that is more oriented towards Earth observation and the use of all these techniques in precision agriculture. Precision agriculture is a management strategy that takes into account temporal and spatial variability of the fields. Fields are living things, and they vary in time and space. And in managing this in a correct way must improve our sustainability in our production and our yields, which are also important. We have a research group working in precision agriculture, and what we can offer to the companies that are now in this webinar. We have developed several robots for scouting, for close-ranging monitoring. So we have the possibility of having data very close to the plants, which is not the case for remote sensing technologies, which are also interesting for what we are going to talk. So we have intelligent ground platforms we can say robots, that can mount a large variety of sensors, including multispectral and hyperspectral cameras, LiDAR, thermographic cameras, and many other types of sensors that can tell us what's happening in the crop. These same platforms may incorporate actuators, so they not only sense, but also they can actuate. Especially in my group, we are doing work in remote sensing. So we are trying to combine information from drones and satellites, basically for precise irrigation, for yield forecasting, and for epidemiological models to see how pests and diseases are spread in the fields. We are also doing some work for monitoring the common agricultural policy, together with the paying agencies here in Valencia. So we can summarize that furthermore, not only we can provide technology, but also I think we can be very good partners for you as ground truth providers. So we are experts in plant identification, in plant physiology and stresses, and precise fertilization and irrigation. And our crops here in Valencia, the major crops are citrus, persimmons, peaches, apricots, loquats, avocados, kiwis, pomegranates, almonds, olives, vineyards. We also grow vegetables like tomatoes, artichokes, lettuces, aubergines, and peppers. And we also have cereals here in Valencia because it's a very agricultural land and with a huge diversity of culture. So we have also rice and wheat. So
Excellent.
we can offer our services in this ground truth that is required for all these technologies. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Enrique. And I think this really creates a very nice canvas with complementary capabilities by our panelists. So actually, I'll take one of the last points you made about the Common Agricultural Policy to open the round of questions now. So in this event, basically what we want to achieve is to sort of sense a little bit what's happening on the ground, what are the main policy drivers, market drivers, technological drivers, what are the challenges that are around. So now we will go on a series of 4 rounds, essentially, of questions, where I would ask each of the 3 people that just spoke to comment. And I think I would start actually with Gedas, and then you can follow up on this question. So the point is the following, Gedas, and I know that you have been doing quite a lot of work in that domain. So we have the Common Agricultural Policy already for years, of course, dictating many of the things that are happening in the sector. The new version of the Common Agricultural Policy is at the gates. We have at the same time the Green Deal for Europe and the Farm to Fork strategy, which is part, in a sense, of that will be defining the strategic direction of things going forward in the future. So the question is, in light of this sort of policy framework, which practices, which applications do you see transforming in the near future? And how do you see the role of innovative technologies like Earth observation in that process? You are muted, Gedas. Sorry, I don't know if I can unmute you. Can someone unmute Gedas?
I'm sorry.
There we go.
It's a very big question, I will repeat. And we started in 2016. In 2017, we already provided the first round of commercial service for the national paying agents of Lithuania. It was 85%, I would say, success. Next year, 2017, we also had a contract on a very, very low budget. And it was, I must say, a failure, at least economically for us. We could not achieve all the goals because the money was impossible, really, against the challenge they raised. In 2018, we made a break. Sorry, in 2019, we made a break, but we started ESAPEX project on CAP service, type C project, specifically on the service development, not research, but on CAP service. So 19 and 20 were 2 years of that project, and last year we finally achieved the result above 95% for 23 algorithms, which include 14 crops. And we are talking about the Northern Europe, which is heavily clouded, and we talk about Eastern Europe, which is specific, very, very specific in its agricultural practice. Those who do agriculture in Germany or Poland or in Germany or France or Spain, they don't have any idea of what's happening in the East. So we are talking about the East and the North. Two problems in one. One problem is that you don't have optical imagery, almost doesn't exist when you need it. Another problem that guys are cheating, guys are doing crazy things, guys are applying crazy techniques and mixed crops and whatever you can imagine. My insights and how we did those 95%, above 95% for those crops and for those activities is, first of all, that you really need to separate tables from chairs. We need to separate land cover type stuff, kind of arable grass, long-term grassland, short-term arable, non-plowing agriculture types. So it's a whole mix of everything. You have to clean up your data. You have to find training, you have to find algorithms to train your data set with existing declarations. You have no time to go into the field for picking up samples, forget. You have no time, you have no money for that. It has to be very heavily automated. It has to be based on artificial intelligence, 95%, at least in our case. And the machine learning and those algorithms have to be crazy sensitive, and you have to spend most of your money and most of your efforts on the innovation development. And the production has to be very, very heavily automated. No chance of opening an image because you have no money for that, you have no time for that. Again, for the paying agencies, there is a problem. Actually, there are two problems from the perspective of management. One is that they, without using any technology, they can do with 5% of field checks. So they have to check 5% of the fields. If they don't check, if they don't use any application, if they use it, they have to check all the fields which are uncertain, which means that your margin of uncertainty is below 5% altogether. Otherwise, for the paying agency, there is no point economically to buy your service because they are increasing the amount of field work for themselves. It's a very important and very difficult issue. You have to be sure what you're telling them. And that 95% level, which is set up by the GRC and then by European Commission, is not so easy because I know the services which were born in big projects and their accuracy level is 85, 90 at the best. So the difference between 90 and 95 is 70% of the budget.
All right.
That's the cost for that 5% thing or 7% thing. It's extremely expensive to reach that 95% level. Otherwise, if you don't, then your service is not validated by the rules of GRC, alphas, betas, false positives, false negatives. If it is not validated, technically the paying agency cannot use it. And the audits would probably not accept that service as something eligible, which means that the whole workflow of field checks and the application of your service become under big question, and the money spent becomes very questionable. So it's a very risky business. So it is one part of it. Another part of it is the sustainability element, because until 2024, the European Commission does not oblige the countries to use any service at all. They support the development, but they do not oblige the country to use it. What happened in our country, we developed that service over 2 years. We got, I will tell you plainly, 150,000 for tax project. We spent that money, but actually it costed us 3 times more. So we had to find co-funding, co-partners, and we raised that €500,000 for 2 years, and we did that service. Now the country says, okay, we know how much it costs, those 95%, but we're not obliged to use it. So we just will not buy it because we don't have to.
But maybe that's a good point to
I'm
hear.
telling you the plain reality. What is it? It's a plain reality. All your machine learning, all your innovation, and all your team, which has done it, is hanging on a thin
thread. Yeah.
thread because there is no obligation for the country to use the service. So we're trying to sell it now to Estonia, to the countries, just to put the budget somehow together. Those are the reality issues. First of all, cost of difference. Sorry, I'm really stealing your time, but
no, it's all right.
We've been through that. You asked me a big question. I'm giving you
the
answer.
I'm guilty as charged. No worries.
Don't go there. It's a nightmare. I tell you, it's a total nightmare. It's a nightmare. Until maybe 2024, it's still a nightmare.
Maybe Enrique, you would like to share some insights. I mean, GEDAS has raised many issues.
Well, I would like to highlight some figures that I believe that are important to have an overall view of what's happening. You have to understand that almost 75% of the beneficiaries of the Common Agricultural Policy receive less than €5,000 per year. Okay, this is an important point. So farmers, most part of the farmers, or many farmers, don't need the agricultural policy to continue in the business because they receive very few money. Only 2% of the beneficiaries receive more than 50,000 euros, and in this amount is 30% of the total direct aid. So let's say that the Common Agricultural Policy, although it's driven the trend of agriculture, is not paying agriculture. Another fact is that the new policy promotes more equity. So I think that we are in a phase in which this is going to be very redistributed. And it's true that, like it has been said, that is trying to develop remote monitoring of the policy, which is this is a must. But the idea is not to have at the beginning a compulsory approach, but a preventive approach. So the idea is that farmers get into this remote monitoring system, and in principle, the paying agencies are going to ask them to correct their failures, to give the money for the common policy. So this approach is going to be very slow, and we are sure here in our regional level that with the information we have provided by Sentinel, by Landsat, but some commercial satellites, this is not enough for the correct monitoring of the Common Agricultural Policy. So one thing is that we need much more resolution, and we need much more information in order to do this monitoring. So this is an idea that I would like to give to the audience. So I think that in the future we will need more sensing closer to ground, like drones or platforms or mobile platforms or sensors attached to the tractors, and also to have a network of fixed sensors in order to do a real monitoring. However, as I told you, this is a lot of effort for very few money if you take into account the individual situation of the farms. And I think also that these problems are going to derive in a lot of public-private partnership. I think the current administration is not going to be able to do this remote monitoring in a correct way. So it must be a trend to public and private partnership. I think this is going to be the future. And this is concerning the common agricultural policy. But another idea or another important fact is the effort that the union is putting in the Green Deal. So this is going to develop lots of precise agriculture applications. And I think there's also a very important market for the people that are now in this meeting. I think that also to promote this Green Deal, there is still a lot of technology to needed, because if not, it's going only to be a small approach or not a global approach to the precise agriculture that is needed for the farmers. So I think that there is a lot of market that is not developed yet. I think that there are many industries that are trying to do efforts in order to get into this market, and it's going to happen like in many other markets. At the beginning, lots of efforts and lots of industries, and only the best will continue in the market.
Thanks. No, and this is actually a good point, maybe to bring Mark into the discussion, because I suppose that CropLife Europe would also be monitoring closely what the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy put forward. So what's your take on that? Or maybe if you want to also respond briefly to some of the points raised by the previous two speakers.
Yeah, I think I can only agree with a lot of what's been said. It's not easy, this stuff, and it's not easy to find the value part of this in many cases. Of course, we're looking at the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy with an eye that, you know, of course, there is a potential immediate threat to the crop protection business from the concept and the guidance that there should be a 50% reduction in pesticide use, and that organic farming needs to now represent 25% of the European area. However, we think that there is actually a significant opportunity in this, but an opportunity that has to be driven by a data-driven scientific approach to producing a productive agriculture, which is much more environmentally friendly and perhaps less driven by the economic decision making that goes on in agriculture now, albeit with very tight margins. And I can tell you as a farmer myself, it's very tight to make any money out of farming right now. So if we're going to move from the economic, we have to think about the environmental and social aspects of sustainable agriculture, and we have to try to quantify that. Now, one of our tasks at the minute, and one of the innovations that we're bringing, is to try to quantify biodiversity in a simpler way than sending an army of people out to count insects and count all the different aspects of biodiversity that you find on a farm and within the landscapes across Europe. We need technology to help us to do this, but absolutely quantifying biodiversity, quantifying soil health characteristics are essential in understanding where our baseline is and how we can move forward and improve so that agriculture can become not only net zero, but actually net positive. That is our target. We want to drive a net positive agriculture solution here.
But then, if I could just pick up this point and move into the part that looks a little bit more into the market, because what you have been describing effectively represents a potential transformation of the market. And I wonder, do you see these 2 points? One, the stronger focus on environmental aspects. Two, it's connected actually to that, the fact that major companies take a blow, let's say, from it's really quote unquote from the policy developments. Does this lead to change in the business model? Does this lead more into the sort of public-private partnership that Enrique was describing, that you would need to sort of reinvent yourselves? And is this an opportunity for some of the people listening today?
I think it's a great opportunity, because there's absolutely no way that Syngenta or the industry players, even the big industry players that are hugely well funded, are going to be able to do this all alone. We're going to have to, we're already investing in small startup businesses. We're already investing in new technologies. We are broadening our own capabilities around soil health and around environmental drivers that we haven't necessarily had the capabilities, or in fact, we may have even lost the capabilities, such as soil microbiology. We as an industry heavily invested in soil microbiology when we were developing. Our innovation rate was much faster, 20 years ago, but we've lost some of that skill actually. And we've realized that, and are now reinvesting into those skills in order to answer some of the big questions that we've got within ourselves. But we will never be able to unlock the key to a truly sustainable agriculture for Europe as a single entity. We will have to do collaborations, and we will work differently as an industry going forward. I do see quite a big transformation, but I see the biggest transformation probably being on the farm itself. The way that the service is delivered, the way that advice is delivered, the way that we operate and make decisions on farms has to be different. And it has to identify with the economic costs versus the economic output of the crop. That is a fundamental change in the way that farming operates now.
Oh, absolutely. The whole notion of return on investment on individual fields even is very trendy lately. I see Gedas wants to comment on that.
Yes, actually, I didn't touch that. I didn't touch that issue, but that green economy, green agriculture issue is not only the political thing. It's something which comes out of the real life practices of the people living in the farms and doing the business. For instance, now we have this climate change and drying of it. Our region was normally very wet, quite wet. Now it's getting more and more dry. We have droughts every year. So what people do, they stop plowing the land, the ground. They stop plowing the soil. They start using plowless agriculture. So they just insert the seeds into the ground, even for the cereals, and that works very well in the northern part of the country, where they have constant lack of moisture in their systems. So they use that, and it's becoming very popular. Right now they have 85% of the fields which are unplugged anymore. So it's containing CO2 in the soil. It's containing all the biodiversity elements, I believe, very much. But that's only one part of the matter. The other part is that naturally, in the grasslands of northeastern Europe, I believe everywhere else, and northern Europe as well, naturally we have a process of this vegetation development, woody vegetation development, or transitional stages development, and it's very intense. It really sounds strange because people would expect that in the southern countries with high temperature, vegetation develops very fast, but actually in the north, it does very fast as well. But at that point, there is a policy issue, because if the farmer keeps that woody vegetation naturally developing in his pastures, for instance, for some time, then he may lose that parcel, that part of land as a agricultural land. It could be taxated or marked or measured as a forest, young forest. And that's an issue because people who don't want to lose that agricultural assets, they just destroy that young forest. They cut it off, they chop it and then remove it. And it's constant war between the nature and the people, the farmers. It's not good at all, I must say, because the forestation levels are not high enough in the countries, and the Green Deal supposes that the forest cover has to increase, and it naturally does. The only problem is that agriculture fights against that process very actively because of the policy. Instead of being supported to keep that natural development in low productivity soils, farmers are kind of encouraged or penalized by the taxes to remove that forest because it's called a abandoned land issue or so. But so it's a policy, not economy. But I touch it in order to put it somewhere on paper, just to mention, because we're really fighting against ourselves, and the productivity of land is not always possible to be reached even with the best precision agriculture methods. Somewhere that is simply not possible and not economically feasible. And having that land which is plain without trees, just to keep it as a meadow, unproductive or low productivity meadow. I'm not talking about market demand for milk or for something else, because it's all related. So we have technology with remote sensing to measure long-term grassland. We have very good technology to measure early development stages of vegetation. We can run through the whole Europe if necessary. But even in the part of where we work now in the Baltic Sea region, 5 countries or so, we see enormous change and enormous potential for natural processes developing in the agricultural sector. I'm afraid no one really sees that, and there is an underestimation of the wood vegetation cover, and it is overestimation of long-term grassland, in my opinion. People think there is a long-term grassland with biodiversity. I'm sorry to say, no, it is not. There are only 3 years sometimes. So technology can measure, can quantify, as it was said today, very, very nicely, all those ecological, ecosystem level elements in the agriculture, which are already now natural, in order to preserve them, in order to structure them into some new ecological corridors or elements, to have it naturally developing in the right direction, instead of putting money to make it, just paying a little bit to support that natural development. And yes, technology is behind that. Yeah.
But then this is actually bringing us a little bit earlier than expected, but we can go back to some of the market parts, to the technology part. And Enrique made the point earlier that on top of complementing the remote sensing capabilities, you also need the proximal sensing. I suppose also from Mark's perspective, there is a lot of technology going into, and that's where the investment, I suppose, goes in as well, the seeds and so on. So my question, Enrique, is, do you see any big tech disruption just around the corner? And you are muted as well, actually.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I'm going to say something that is a bit different from what is always said. In my opinion, technology is going faster than science at this moment. So we have lots of technologies, lot of developments, but I feel, it's not a personal opinion, I feel that politicians and technicians are going faster than knowledge. For example, I can see the reasons for the Green Deal to put these percentages. They have put, in my opinion, arbitrary percentages all over Europe I understand the idea, and I understand the need, and I understand the need for fighting for against climatic change. I never say something in the contrary. This is very important. However, I don't know how they got these figures. I think this was more a political decision than a science-based decision. On the other side, I see lots of implementations of new technologies that are not agronomically sound. For example, there are lots of applications that speak about wavelengths, about vegetation indexes, about things that a farmer sometimes don't understand. Why? Because now we have the power of getting lots of data, but we don't get lots of information. And I think the crucial issue is to change this trend. Well, I'm sure that we are going to change this trend, because with lots of data, we will got in the future lots of information. But I think the war now is there to get more information, not to get more data.
Oh, that's definitely a very very sharp point, and there is no doubt that this sort of equilibrium between overly excited technology push and eager market pull is always at odds, let's say, with each other. Going back a little bit, because this again represents, at least in my eyes, an underlying transformation that's happening in the market. And Mark brought a little bit earlier the point about the transformation of how things are done at farm level. And often, and we will hear in a minute, both from Laurent giving an overview, but also from the startups in their pitches, this is precisely where you can find the differentiating factor. If you understand from the technology provider point of view how things work in a farm, then you have a better, let's say, chance to address it. So my question here is, we see a lot of investment going into different types of solutions. And I wonder how much of it represents this sort of technology hype that we were just discussing a second ago with Enrique and Guedas, and how much represents having understood what's happening with the farmers on the ground. And maybe Mark, you would like to, because actually you represent both sides from what I understand.
Yeah. I think there's some of these technology solutions that are being co-developed on farms, and therefore the application of them, the hypothesis testing, if you like, is live and is real. Conversely, there's a lot that's being created in a laboratory or in an engineering shed with a hope that it is applicable to farm. What isn't being done is there's a lot of piecemeal technology have-a-goes, which is great for innovation, and the pace of innovation is definitely accelerating. I absolutely agree that technology is probably racing ahead, and in fact politics assumptions that technology is going to solve all this is definitely on the front edge of the technology wave. But if we don't understand or have a vision before long about how this can all fit together, how the agronomic decision making for productive but sustainable crop management across Europe can really work together, we're going to end up wasting an awful lot of money in supporting technologies that don't necessarily fit that model. We are struggling with that as an industry. We are investing in our own individual businesses, but we're not investing much as an industry to collaborate across all of this. There are some places where we are. There is a few examples where we are, but that's very early stage. The industry needs to collaborate on a lot of these areas, at least on, I think the point about democratizing of data is absolutely right. We've got to get an industry access to farm level data, understand what's going on properly on the farm, take it away from small scale trials that we've been used to creating over the last 20, 30 years, but small scale trials do not really demonstrate what happens on a farm. We need to understand more about what happens on a farm in order to make some choices about where we're going to invest our time and money in the technology future.
No, this is actually probably the best pass on to Laurent. Laurent is from Vito, because I mean he will not only be talking to us about this, but they have developed a whole approach. It's not just a platform, the way I see it, called Watch It Grow for potato monitoring in Belgium. And I think, Laurent, you can also tell us a little bit about how you manage this relationship with the farmers, sharing data and so on. But I mean, so the floor is yours now to respond to the various points that have been raised. Please also introduce what you're doing and what Vito is doing, and you can also share your slides if you would like to. And afterwards, we will go into the pitches and have more of discussion on all these different subjects that have been brought up, plus the questions of the audience. So the floor is yours, Laurent.
Okay, the floor is mine. Okay, thanks. Well, I'm a bit overwhelmed now because there was a lot of interesting points raised that I maybe would like to comment on, but I think I will just do it while I go in my presentation. I will make the link with some of the comments because there were some very good ones. So I'll quickly share my screen in the meantime. Okay, so I'm Laurent. I work at Vito Remote Sensing. So I'm at Vito. It's a research institute working on a lot of different domains, focused on technology and sustainable solutions. And we work in the remote sensing department. It's quite a broad group. We're about 100 people working on remote sensing. And myself, I'm the head of agricultural applications. So we do everything with remote sensing technology within the agricultural chain. So this is just an overview of what we do within our group, and it's very broad. So we're a group of about 15 people who really work on developing technology for agriculture. But it goes from really detailed at small plot level, for example, for seed breeders, all the way to monitoring food production at a global scale for the United Nations. So we really do the whole range of agricultural monitoring. But what I will mainly talk about today, because I think it's also more in the scope of the session today, is really at more the left side of this figure. I will not really go into the whole large scale and regional monitoring, but it's really more about how can we enable, how can we make sure that this technology and the data that comes from it is being used properly by the end users we see. And the end users are not really or necessarily the farmers, it's really the whole value chain that can benefit from it. And that's what I will try to demonstrate a bit. Yeah, remote sensing of Earth observation is also a very broad term. I will also provide a bit of focus on what we do with drones. Why? Because it's a nice story to make the connection to some of the points that have been made about how to make sure technology is used, how to go from data to information. I think that was a very good comment, and it's really a major bottleneck right now for the uptake. So really, how to make sure that if there is technology available, that it's being used by the foreseen end users. And what we did, because we've been working with drones for a very long time, initially mainly about testing technology, so which drones can do what, which sensors can measure what, and for which applications can we use it. But more and more we received requests to really start using it as a service by some people. And there we developed the Mapeo platform. And the whole point was, we have data available, we have products, but we do not get it to the end users in the way they can use it. We were struggling because, well, we were a research institute, we had very nice things to show, but we weren't able to make sure that they can use it as they should be using it. And that's why we developed this platform. And it really takes away the whole, or should I say, learning curve of using drones away from the company that wants to use it. Because there's a big learning curve and it's a showstopper most of the time. So we take that learning curve for us and we just get them to the final product. So just some of the applications that we do with it. Right now it's really being used by input suppliers like seed breeders, people developing bioagents, pesticides. So that kind of companies that work a lot with plots, very small plots, many plots, and they have to measure every plot individually. It takes a lot of time. So there the return on investment is very clear. What you can measure with drones, it's more accurate often, it's much quicker, it's much cheaper. So it's very clear business case there. And there's a whole range of products that we can do, like the flowering, germination rate of new seeds, the height, for example, in wheat, lodging or not. Here's an example of counting flowers for onions. So how many flowers do you have? Where are they? Which stadium are they? So automatic detection and counting of the flowers. Also disease scoring, so which plots have a disease, the infestation rates, timing of infestation and all that is also present. So right now we have quite a long list already of crops we can do, services we can do, the products we get out. And it's not just, like I also mentioned before, it's not just indices. It's not just an NDVI that shows you variation. It's very concrete, tangible data that they need, because they measure, for example, the height, so we can give them height as well. The number of flowers, we can give them the number of flowers, germination rate, the die-off rate, all those things. So it's very concrete variables that they work as well, and they get it from remote sensing data. And then you see that they really start to trust the data as well, because it's tangible information. They know what to do with it. So that's what we can do with the technology, but how can we make sure that they can use it as well? And that's what we try to do with Mapeo. So it's drone data, but made easy for the user. So first of all, make sure they have access to the technology without having to do the investments themselves. So we have the platform, but the platform is just a platform. So you still need the drones, you still need the camera. So that's why we don't do it ourselves, but we have a network of providers for us. So if, for example, a client comes to us and he says, I have a production field in Ukraine that I need to be flown next month. Okay, we look in the network and we can connect the right partner that's flying there. Because a lot of those companies are not present in just one country. They're doing experiments in a whole range of countries. So it would, well, they wouldn't have to outsource it to different people as well. So it's a one-stop shop for all their operations within Europe or even abroad. But because we work with a lot of different providers, we have to make sure that the data that comes in is of good quality, because we don't know every pilot personally, so we don't know how good are they. So that means when they fly for us, they have to use a specific software to upload the data, and we do the quality check immediately in the field. So if they fly, they have to upload the data immediately, and it checks for some variables like if they covered the whole area, was it high enough? Was it slow enough? Is the overlap between images good enough or not? So there's immediately a certain quality check, and if it's not good enough, they can't even upload the data to our system and we won't process it. And another key element is making sure that the end user can actually use the data, because if you send them images or just JPEGs, well, they can look at it and they can see it's pretty, but they cannot really use it. They cannot really extract information. So that's why we also have the platform developed for them, where all the data that's flown for them comes and they can play with it themselves a bit. They can look at it, but it's mainly visualization, making sure they see what's happening, making sure they're involved, making sure they understand what the data shows. But that's not really for them to use it already. This is just to get them connected to the whole process and earn their trust that the data that we have is good enough. And now is actually the point that's for us the most important, and it's also what was mentioned before, we have enough data, but we don't have enough information, or the farmers don't have enough information. So that's really what we try to do here. You have all these plots, it's a lot of data, and normally you would have to extract it for every plot individually. So here there's an automatic tool. You just highlight it, you say the rowing and the spacing between the different plots, and it will automatically delineate them. So once you have those plots, you can change the naming so it corresponds to the ones that they put in the field, because every company has its own system for labeling those plots. And then you can just automatically, if you do that, then you can look at the list of variables that's there, and you can just extract them and export them as a CSV. And that means that we processed everything. The only thing you have to say is which products do you need, and then they are available to you as a CSV. And companies know how to work with tables, they know how to work with Excel, and then they can link it directly into their daily operations. And we've actually taken away the whole technology away from them. And in the end, what they get is just a CSV with the output they need. So what are the key elements, I think, here in this story that made sure that it is quite a big success, and it's growing really quickly? So what are the key elements, I think, that make it such a good success is the concept of this technology is just a few clicks away. The only thing you have to do is say where we need to fly, when we need to fly, and which products do you need. You have to tell them before the growing season starts. Then you get a quote saying, okay, if this is what you want, this is how much it will cost. You approve it, and it's already planned, and we will fly those days or around those days, depending on the weather, of course, and extract the information you like. So basically, they don't need to know anything about the technology. They just have to let us know what we need to do, and we do it for them. I think the second is user interaction. If it's a black box for them, it's sometimes difficult to get the buy-in, to get them involved. So that's why we had the platform for visualization, but it's more than just showing the data. For example, what we do here is we show the results. So for example, here we had to count the ears of wheat, because that's for them, that was an indication of the productivity of that variety. So we do it for them. They get the Excels with showing for each plot the productivity, but they can also go and look actually at the data, what we did. And here they say, oh, you missed a few ears, so let me show it for you. You missed this one, you missed that one. And the AI in the background gets automatically updated. We do the rerun and they have the new data. So it's not just us working for them, it's really a collaboration, and they can actually choose how involved they are. Either we do everything, or they say, no, we want to be part of this annotation because we know more the concept, we know better the system, so we would like to take care of that part. It's fine, they can do it. The tools are there. They can do as many annotations they want, and the more they work on the annotations, the more accurate it gets, and the better it is for them as well. So that was the involvement. I think the third one is, if you want to start working with remote sensing in general, it's a lot of technology, but it's also rapidly changing technology. It was also mentioned before, technology is not the issue anymore. It's there. Everything we want to do is theoretically feasible with the technology is there. It's mainly having the tools to convert it. And that's why some companies are hesitant, because technology is changing so quick. So which drone to buy? Because in 2 months' time, there's a better drone. Which camera to buy? Because the cameras are changing as well the whole time. And that part of the puzzle we take care of as well. We test those new technologies. For example, here is from the 2020 season. We started flying with new, very high resolution cameras to show them, okay, this is something interesting. This is what you can do. Look at the quality, it's amazing. If you want to do early disease detection, this is what you might want to look at. For example, rust spots are very small. We can see them with this kind of technology. Do you want to go ahead? This is what it would cost. This is what you could get out of it regarding accuracy and so on. And they just have to say yes or no, and we can go ahead. So we take a lot of those testing away from them, those headaches. We do it for them, and they just have to decide if it's worth yes or no. So that's also, I think, one of the key elements that helps in promoting this tool. But of course, this is just one very specific aspect. We do much more as well. And it's not just drones, it's not just very local, it's also, if you look at farmers, if you look at also other companies, if you look at CAP, you look at satellites. But basically the story is the same. It's changing quickly. People don't want the data, they want the information. So how to get it? How can they work with it? How can we make it accessible for them? It's basically the same story as before, just the technology behind it that's a bit different. But in the end, first thing we need to do, build a platform so the users can get to the data and get to the information. So that's why we built Watch It Grow. Initially, it was for just Belgium, just for the potato industry. Actually developed not for the farmers, but it was for the processing industry, because Belgium has a huge potato processing industry, but the largest exporter of frozen fries and other derived products of potato. So that it's big in Belgium, but the processing industry needs that information on like how much yield will we have this year from our fields in Belgium and surrounding areas. Sorry. So that was actually built for not for the farmers, but for the processing industry, but also to support their producers, so they could get the information that they needed. So we built it for them based on remote sensing data. And there it's key, it's also been mentioned before, you need to get the right information products in there. If you talk about monitoring potato, well, we need to know where is potato growing and where are other crops growing. Once you know that, you can start working on it. So first thing, you need to know what is growing where, because that's basically the basis for every other thing you would like to do in agricultural monitoring. So for Belgium, we can do it early in the season, and then we update it later in the season again to have for each field in Belgium actually the crops. Once we know the crops, we know their history, because basically we have data since 2015 and 16. We know for each field their production potential. We know what are the problem areas, because they come back every year. And we can show to the farmer, if you would like to do something on this field, this is its history. Those are the crops that have been grown. This is how well it performed in rainy conditions, in wet years and dry years. So these are the problem areas or not. And you can take that into account also in the choice of which crop you will put in that field. There are some technological developments being done, but that's all in the background. The users don't see them. They see the benefits, they see the increased accuracy, but they don't see really the work that we do. We're a remote sensing company. We do technical developments, but the user is hardly aware of what we do in the background. They're not interested in it either, because they just would like to have the final information. For example, we had an issue in the beginning with clouds. If you want to do yield estimation, if you want to see problems, especially during crop emergence, that's one of the key phases in crop development. It's also a very cloudy period. So often we would miss it. So that's why, just out of pure necessity, we built a tool that merges Sentinel-1 and 2. So we integrated radar as well. And we can get now daily observations without cloud over that field. So that we have now, it works really well. And once we have that in the background, we can provide to the end users some additional services. Yeah, another one, but I will skip it. We don't only do integration with Sentinel-1, but also with meteorological data, so we can make predictions for the next 10 days as well. That's still very early. But based on that, because now we have those continuous monitoring, we can do much better yield estimations, because we don't have those gaps anymore in crucial phases of the development. We just have daily observations now. We can do much better yield estimations. We can do much better, for example, harvest detection, so also sometimes important for CAP. We can get now to an accuracy less than 5 days, regardless of cloud cover. So that's really good. So that's the technology behind it to improve a service towards the end user.
Laurent,
and then maybe, yeah.
Yeah, no, just if you could sort of wrap it up within the next
minute. It's the last
yeah.
2 slides.
Right, thanks.
So what we started with to begin, it was just like when we began, it was just a data, like we wanted a platform to sell our EO products, right? We have this, we have biomass, we have phenology, we have like the variability and so on. So we have those products, but we didn't get them to the end user. So we built a platform. But now that the platform is there, there's big uptake by a lot of actors in the field, not only the farmers, not only processing industry, but also, for example, insurance and a lot of service providers. So the people that actually give advice to the farmers, they're really connecting. So we started from a data platform, but actually right now, after 4 or 5 years, like we start from a remote sensing platform, but now after 5 years, we're really just like a data platform where we are a data brokerage and there's remote sensing, but it's becoming not a small part, but just one part of the whole story. People are putting weather data on it, soil data, their Internet of Things. So if they have sensors in the field, it can connect automatically to the platform as well. So it becomes like this database for the farmer where everything comes together, also for their own data. Yeah, so a lot of other data products are on it as well. Parcel data, I'll skip. But also what's important for the farmer, there's a lot of platforms for them. If you want to use satellite data, you have one platform. You have the tractor data, you have another platform. If you have certain suppliers, they have their own platform. And here we actually try to accommodate it by, you can easily link those platforms together. For example, Soil Service of Belgium, they give, you can request soil samples, they give irrigation advice based on that. It's just like all in this one place, and for the farmer, it starts to integrate as a entire service, and that's what they appreciate. Just a remote sensing platform, for them, it's not worth it. Once it's connected with other services and it becomes like a one-stop shop, that's for them when the real added value comes. And it's when we started integrating with those additional service providers that for the farmers, we really saw a big uptake as well. So that for us was a big difference. So my end conclusion is, one, remote sensing is interesting, very promising, but it's just a small piece of the puzzle. So realize that, and you really have to bring everything together. And very often we are not the ones that are in the position to do so. It's other players that need to do it. But be aware that you will not be the one solving all the big problems for the farmers or for the other one. And two is, it's all a system of systems, like agricultural food production. Yeah, the farmers are just one part. You have the suppliers, you have the ones that like you have the whole value chain, and we can do something for the whole value chain. And if you integrate everything over the whole value chain, you can actually add additional layers to it. For example, what we do now for the seed breeders, we have the Mapeo that really works at the plot level. And Watch It Grow is now being used to see how are the varieties doing over Europe, because usually they don't have that information. Like once they send it out, how well is it doing in different conditions? Is it working, or this variety, how it's performing in sandy soils? How is it working in clay soils, dry climate, wet climates, cold, warm? So then they get feedback on where is it performing well and well not, and you get this feedback loop again to the initial phases. And that's really, I think, where remote sensing has a big added value. You can integrate over the different parts of the value chain. And I think that's my conclusion.
Thanks a lot, Laurent. You raised some very interesting points, and I think actually the one point about being part of a solution is a key aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, moving on to those that aspire to become either the solution or part of the solution, we will have 3 pitches by startups of PARSEC on relatively different, actually, applications. So actually, I will ask Dragana to start with Space for Fauna. You can share your screen or just do it live. And
Yes.
just to say that after each of the pitches, if anyone from the panelists wants to have a very quick question or observation, feel free. But otherwise, we would open the floor after the end of all the pitches to really open up the discussion.
Hello, everyone. It's very inspiring to hear all these talks, and especially because I'm a crop protection scientist, leading crop protection scientist, and we of course think that this revolution needs to come from the ground up, from the knowledge of crop protection science. I will say something today about Space for Fauna, which is a consortium supported by PARSEC Accelerator. Space for Fauna is developing data-driven and science-based solutions to help farmers transition to greener, healthier, and more efficient farming practices that are in line with the newest EU regulations. apart from the fact that, of course, we do think that farming should be in line with nature, today farmers are facing really big challenges. The EU has issued regulations against most chemical pesticides that have affected over 10.5 million farmers across Europe. And now farmers need to rely more on the alternatives to chemical pesticides, which operate differently. And farmers are lacking knowledge on this, just like with everything new. And intervening one day late in crop protection will result in up to 3% lower yield and up to 5% less revenue. And this especially goes for farmers in horticulture. They do lack knowledge on where pests and diseases are located, why they are affecting their crop, and what they can do about it. And this is where we step in. To answer where and why, we are developing a user-friendly platform, or a farmer-friendly platform that combines Earth observation data with IoT sensors. And to answer what, we want to couple this platform with the knowledge database of science-based solutions for crop protection, how to protect crops. And this is exactly like based on cutting-edge science coming from academia, many, many years of research in academia. And in this way, we offer customized, data-driven, science-based solutions that are in line with the newest EU regulations. So how big is the market? Our initial market are apple and pear orchards in Denmark, from where farmers generate over 15 million euros of revenue yearly. We also plan to expand to European orchards with over 6 million hectares. And precision farming in Denmark has already grown nearly 100% from one year to another. Our primary customers are farmers, and we have generated interest from them. We will target our customers directly through application trials to demonstrate the value of our product. When it comes to our product, we plan to make it free for the first year, so farmers can see the benefit and have access to more advanced features. Then we will charge per hectare and depending on the size of operations. We believe that with our combined expertise in horticulture and food security and Earth observation, between FaunaSmart Technologies and Space for Good, we do believe that we have what it takes to be this team to succeed in driving this change in primary food production. My name is Dragana from FaunaSmart Technologies, and I am happy to answer your questions now. Thank you for listening.
Thanks a lot, Dragana. So is there any immediate question or observation that any of the panelists would like to share? If not, I would pass on the floor to Osman, and we can get back to that. I myself would have some questions, but I'd rather bring them up in the follow-up to this part of the discussion. So, Osman, the floor is yours. You can present what you're doing with cotton.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Osman from Accurate. I'm sharing my screen right now. And today I'll present you our initial products along with what we do at Accurate. So we discovered that through our professional life, we've been in agri-business and agtech startup, dealing with agtech startups for a while. And during our time, we discovered that especially in our regions and in globally still, agribusinesses are not well informed of the farmlands which are located in the remote rural areas, and that's why we wanted to step in and try to help in a product-focused way. Because one of the things that we see is that the technical users can make some meaning out of the technology that's being available, and that's been available for a while, but it's not mainstream yet. So that's why we set up Accurate. And when I mean agribusinesses, it's not just the it has many different types of companies involved in the supply chain, which is input companies, financing and insurance companies, commodity buyers, and governments and NGOs. And what we see is that they make a lot of operational decisions throughout the year, and the information that they get is almost always late. Many times not granular enough, and most of the times prone to bias and errors. And along with everybody in this today, we believe that the solution is partially at least satellite based, and that's why we use primarily Sentinel-2, but we also integrate into other satellite information so that we can deliver accurate, rich rural intelligence and update it periodically. We've focused on 3 different segments, which are agri-input businesses for predictable operations with real-time market information, agri-banking insurance with agri-feasibility, which is cat insurance, which created cat insurance, maybe partially created. And we also work with commodity food and retail. We are pursuing deeper understanding within each of these segments, and we have pilots and customers in each of these segments, although we are younger than 1 year old right now. One of the things that has been mentioned a lot of today is that the agriculture has especially when we are talking about the data, it's not too transparent, and it's also we can also feel it in the market estimations for our widget market. We believe it's in agricultural analytics, but we are trying to come up with a bottom-up estimation of the market because we are unsure about the numbers that we found. But for the crop index insurance, it's a little bit more concrete. And for crop index insurance, we are in PARSEC with Oko Finance, an Israeli startup. We are from Turkey, and we are partnered up with Allianz to deliver yield index insurance to the farmers living in Mali, sub-Saharan African country, cultivating cotton. And give a little bit more information about it. Why Mali? Why sub-Saharan Africa? Half of the global farmlands are being cultivated by family farmers who are mostly living in underdeveloped or developing countries, and they can't access, only a small percentage of them can access to insurance and finance. For example, in sub-Saharan Africa, it's 3% for insurance products. And the reason is that because they don't have financial background. So that's why we teamed up with Oko to deliver alternative means of data and a means of reaching out to these farmers who can, who don't have a connection and which traditional insurance and finance companies cannot reach out. So that's how we develop cotton insurance, and it's going to other crops soon, hopefully. And when we talk about the way we gather information out of the satellite imagery, we really focused a lot on processing and delivery costs, and we really focused on using only a little field data, and because when we talk about, our country, Turkey, or when we talk about Southeastern Asia or Africa, there's not much data even compared to Europe. There is even much less data that we can work on, and we have to make accurate predictions. So we really focused our efforts on utilizing this little information. And at the end, we also wanted to, since we will be working with bankers and insurance brokers, we can't, just produce something for technical experts. So we are working on developing an intuitive UX for everybody involved, including farmers. And one of the key aspects of our go-to-market strategies that we really focus on partnering up with other innovators such as Orco Finance or in other segments of we deliver value. We have long history of startups, entrepreneurship, and industry. Our platform is ready. Actually, we serve on several crops for crop classification and harvest detection and so on, starting from Turkey. And as I mentioned, we have one customer in each segment so that we can work with them closely. We are quite well funded for our stage. At least we are right now 7 people and will be 10 next month. We want to extend our relationships in the markets that we are targeting, which are mostly Eastern Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Asian countries. And we aim to serve globally on 40 plus crops in 4 years. Right now we are targeting annual crops, but starting from next year, we will go to the perennial crops as well. That's basically the timeline, and thank you for listening. We really want to have an impact on helping the solution, these problems, these challenges that we are facing. So we hope to have a say in better rural intelligence for a better world. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Osman. Again, if there is any immediate reaction from the panelists, the floor is yours. Otherwise, I would pass to Vincent and Cooper. I don't know who would actually present. Maybe, yeah.
Hi. Good morning. Okay, I'll share my screen and get going.
And just to say in the meantime that anyone from the audience who wants to raise questions, feel free to do so through the Q&A. I see there are a few questions raised already, and we would be going back to that just after this presentation.
So thanks to PARSEC and the organizers. This has been a pretty interesting one. We're a little bit kind of the odd ones out here, coming from the maritime space and the fisheries space. So yeah, and so our consortium consists of Bering Data Collective and Deep Blue Globe, and Deep Blue Globe comes from the EO AI space, specializing in maritime applications, including shipping routing, optimization. But then on our end at Bering Data Collective, our core activity is instrumenting fishing vessels with oceanographic sensors. And so this has been a fantastic synergy of our very different expertise as well as data streams. So what are we doing? This is addressing the pains in the commercial fishing space, focusing on high latitude polar fisheries, where in well-managed regions, which are the majority of high latitude fisheries, fishing is not actually about catching more fish. Each vessel has an allotted quota. So the name of the game is catching this allotment as efficiently as possible and reducing the capture of unintended bycatch, which is expensive and damaging for the aquatic ecosystems. However, fishing is fairly traditional and relying on the past experience of captains on where to fish. And to make this outdated method of operating even worse, climate change is disrupting aquatic ecosystems and moving everything around. And this is happening far more quickly in the oceans than on land. And then beyond that, there's a host of navigational and operational hazards, especially when you're talking about high latitude hazardous polar fisheries. And so very much in the tradition of what we've been talking about today in precision agriculture, we are building a precision fishing tool called Polaris, which is an integrated end-to-end solution to not only locate the optimal sustainable fishing grounds, but then define the optimal routes there and back based upon a host of factors and data streams. So in short, we're giving the captains the decision support to properly evaluate bold decisions and be first movers, increasing the value of their allotted catch and decreasing the costs of acquiring it. And so precision and data-driven agriculture products have been around for a little bit, but why don't we have something similar in the ocean? And a core reason for this is the lack of data. And today's automated ocean observation technologies lead to the majority of in situ data being collected counterintuitively in the deep open ocean. So in this upper world map, you can see the yellow coverage looks pretty good, But then if you zoom in closer to a shelf or coastal region, Alaska, for example, there are striking gaps in data coverage. And EO data is great for the sea surface, which is a key ingredient, but most fish are not at the surface. And so fishing occurs precisely where this data is not, which is a key reason why this has not happened before, but is a key opportunity and edge for us, since that's what we do, is outfitting these fishing vessels as ocean observation platforms. So the Polaris, the real difference is with the harmonization of all of these different and unique data streams, synergies between EO and in situ, as well as fishery science data sources. So with the instrumentation of fishing vessels, we're able to ensure that data is collected precisely where it matters most to our customers. I was kind of surprised by the talks earlier today where I can't remember who it was, but talking about instrumenting tractors and other things like that, and how this issue is also an issue and an opportunity for innovation in the precision ag space. And so Polaris is exciting also because of the exciting market potential and growth there. In many fishing regions, stocks are suffering, especially equatorial regions with rampant overfishing, marine heat waves, and also agricultural pollutants. But things are looking up in the poles with sustainably managed fisheries, modern vessels, and especially with kind of a boost from climate change inducing the increases in stock abundance and ecosystem productivity. So this is an exciting space to be in, or exciting seas. So our core business model is built around subscription for a monthly service that fits seamlessly into the systems and software tools used on modern fishing vessels. And so not only attractive from a financial standpoint, but there are multi-dimensional positive impacts ranging from increasing the sustainability of fisheries and decreasing the impact of acquiring high quality protein from these potentially sensitive marine ecosystems, and then reducing the carbon emissions associated with fishing by more efficient routing. And then finally, increasing the safety and well-being of the fishermen and the humans at sea. So that's all I've got. Thanks for your attention, and to the organizers, and look forward to discussions after.
Thanks a lot, Cooper. So now the floor is open. There are already a few questions that I can see in the Q&A part. I see that some of you are already starting to type the answers there, but maybe we can actually have a little bit of a live exchange on that. So first, let's go from the pizzas, and then we can move back to the previous discussion. So 2 questions for Space for Fauna. Does it make sense for you to work with producers of, for example, pesticides? And I guess that is something that maybe Mark could also have a quick response.
It makes a lot of sense to me. I've reached out to Dragana and made the link.
All right. I think then the aim of this food and user technology talk has already been achieved. Then there's also the question around the first year of operations, because you mentioned that you would like it to be, well, you would offer it for free for a year, so that I guess you get your clients hooked. And I see that there's a question on how sustainable that would be, or how anyway do you work around that?
Okay, apologies. Is it me, because I just yeah.
Yes. That's I mean, that's the question around the first year of your services, which you foresee to be unpaid.
Okay,
and I see a question has been directed.
Okay, yes, I can see the question now. Sorry. Yes. Well, actually, this is the so this is our basically intentional, like we are now in a product design and we really want to make it customer centric. So this is actually one of our projects. So from other projects, we do have revenue from our customers, and this is actually what we are doing on purpose like this, because we can afford it from other services that we provide. Yeah. So
All right, so redirecting your revenues towards innovation in this particular.
Yes. So this is,
domain.
I mean, if this was probably only one project, yes, it's not sustainable, but we are actually like doing this on purpose. Yeah.
And maybe just to extend, yeah, I see someone wants to comment. Was that right, or? Okay. Maybe after all this lockdown, I'm starting to hear voices. Fine. So then maybe just to extend this same topic with Osman. Osman, you already made the point that you have a few paying customers, and I suppose regardless of the, let's say, level of maturity of a service or how many years you have been in the sector offering operational services, this is always a key point. I'm sure Vito and Geometrics would relate to that. So what was your way of getting them on board?
Actually, I've been in Actex, and I've been dealing with remote sensing for 5 years. And previously, we had the mistake of not offering anything upfront, and this really scares the companies because it's something really technological. I agree with many of these panelists today. This is quite scary, and they are hesitant. They see it risky to use it, or they think that they cannot use it. So inaccurate from these day zero, as I mentioned in my slides, we decreased processing costs of our satellite analytics algorithms and everything. And as a result, we are offering several free years of historical data of their choice of region. For example, a company wanted to know the rapeseed fields, and in a cloud region, that was one of their problems. So we delivered it for 2019, 18, and 20, and they were satisfied with it. So that was made possible with our new approach. Previously, we were really struggling with that.
All right. And maybe then to move on, because I have to underline, some of you might have thought, how did we move to precision fishing and so on? In PARSEC, we are looking into food production, and obviously this is equally important. And I see that there's a question raised on how similar or different the contours, let's say, of the sector are, the challenges, the technical points, I guess, and so on. Maybe you would like to give some feedback there, Cooper.
Yes, thank you. It's an interesting question for sure. But today has been my deepest dive into precision agriculture. So I can't speak too much to how things work on your end, but at least on the fishery side, it's horribly much more complex, because not only are the fish moving around, so you've got this added dimensionality where your crops aren't, pretend your crops are just running all around. And then it's also much more a four-dimensional field where you've got, the ocean water masses moving in different places and up and down, and the fish can be like that. So, and it's much more difficult to collect data throughout that entire water column. So there are a lot of extra factors to that. And probably very similar to agriculture, where there's a big diversity in small scale fishing vessels to massive industrial fishing vessels. So learning what the right suit within the industry is probably a similar hurdle as well.
And maybe to stay a little bit on this sort of comparison and go to the second question that has been raised about the democratization of data, because from what I understood, Cooper, you also made the point that you would be outfitting the vessels with sort of sensors that you would then expect, of course, the data to be shared back with you. The same story has been touched upon earlier. So I'm referring to this question about whether it's critical to go back to basics and invest in improving the quality and coverage of the available data to ensure we can leverage better and more relevant insights. This was raised earlier today. So if anyone on the panel wants to give some further insights on the democratization of data or methods through which you can sort of incentivize farmers or fishermen to be part of the solution, I guess, themselves.
If I think about it from a farmer's perspective, my view is that the data that is effectively collected from a crop or from soil or the local environment, which is under the ownership of the farmer, that data needs to be clear that it is part of the farmer's assets, and any value that is created from it is either distributed back to the farmer or it is somehow there is a reward for providing that data. And I think unless everybody is aligned to that way of thinking, we're going to find data extraction from farms quite difficult, and that's what we really need to achieve. So to do that, we need a clear set of policies, we need a clear regulatory environment for that, and we need a market, therefore, as well, established to do that. So we're some way from that right now, in my opinion, but in order to answer some of the big questions that we've got, we need to get that in place at the front edge.
Thanks, Mark. No, that's definitely a key aspect, obviously, this regulation. I see Laurent wants to also pitch in on this point.
Yep, because when we just started with the Watch It Grow platform and we started talking to farmers, it was actually a very big issue because they were very reluctant to start sharing their data because they saw it as a one-way direction. Like they had to share data, but they didn't see the benefit for them. And they were very afraid of what would happen with that data because, for example, a very important information, for example, for us is yield data. We can do a lot for the farmer if we would have information to their yields, but that's also the one data they're very reluctant to share because also regulation wise, like what they would, the true yields and the reported yields are not always the same. So they were very anxious on what would happen with that information. Like, would it be used for monitoring purposes? Would it be given to the government? Like, what would happen with it? But now, after a few years, like we did two things. One is show them what we can do once we have that data. For example, the information I showed previously on those variability maps, and we can do benchmarking, for example, saying like your field is performing like this, and it is in line with the surrounding fields with the same variety, or is doing better or poorer. Then they could start seeing, oh, okay, so if I share my data, this is what you can do with it. And then they started seeing the benefit. And then right now we don't have that issue of data sharing anymore. What also happened is, for example, for us, because the processing industry was behind it, they actually paid the farmers to share data, like to give them an incentive. So if they would give us all the data, they would get bonuses depending on which data they gave. So that's a bit a stimulus. But what we start seeing right now is that the farmers want to share the data. So from a concept point of view, they want to, but it's becoming too much of a hassle because they say, yeah, we have all this data in one database, and then I have to type it over manually to another database, and it's just too much work. And I don't want to be sitting there in the evening, 2 hours, just typing from one Excel to another. And so right now, I think it's, like I said, the farmers start to have a lot of different platforms, and sharing data between those platforms is for the farmer not necessarily an issue, as long as they don't have to do it themselves. Like if you would start agreeing on data standards, like ways to share data according to the proper rules, and that they know what it stays their data, they are in full control of it at all stages, then they're fine with it. And that's, I think, something that needs to come in place. Like, how can the different platforms and data storage facilities and so on start working together in function of the farmer? I think that would be a next good step.
I see Cooper also wants to pitch in. Yes, please go.
Yes, if I could just add on to that, very much agree with what you were saying, Laurent. And also, you know, in our experience, it matters quite a lot what type of data you're asking them to share. Similarly to yields, if you ask them to share catch data, that's tricky. Ocean temperature, nobody cares. That's not a problem at all. So I can imagine there might be some similarities there to where you can start with one type of data that's not very threatening and then build upon that trust with the more benign types of data. And then also a lot of how you manage the data. You know, that's really our specialty, is making sure that the data is anonymized in a way that meets the fishing industry's needs, but then can also be used in a scientific context. And so kind of creating these win-wins and assurances there.
Thanks. I see this is a very interesting topic. Geddes, you wanted to share some thoughts?
Just very short comments. Really, people don't want to tell what they've got, especially concerning the yields. And there are many reasons, as already was mentioned, even up to such as they are over fertilizing. So they're producing, sometimes they're producing crops under some kind of illegal, conditions. And then they have to hide part of the yield and show the other part of the yield, and so on and so forth. But another thing I would like to really mention is that, just telling approximately we've got this doesn't really tell anything. It's even disrupts the whole machine learning process. Then if you want to train the systems on a precise measurement taken, for instance, from the radar, SAR, as we use radar mostly, that's a very sensitive instrument. If you just tell bullshit, I mean, the instrument sees very clearly what's on the ground, and you have to tell very, very precisely what is the in situ stuff. So the only data we rely is when we get the yields measured by the tractors automatically, by the machines like John Deere can get you the number of the kilograms. That is something we can trust, but not just saying like, okay, 11 tons or 7 tons, 7.5. What is that? It's just approximate level, and just better knowing nothing than knowing this, honestly.
But this also then goes back a little bit to this marketplace comment that Laurent made with different types of capabilities working together and all being sort of visible in one go to the farmer. I see, Dragana, you want to share some thoughts?
Yeah, I would, because I've heard the tractors several times. Do we really believe that tractors will be machinery of the future if we talk about precision farming? Because maybe it will be a drone with a precision spraying, just like, to spray with like a perfume, a thing like a robotic arm, because I mean, tractors are really the product of the third agricultural revolution, and we know how much damaging tractors are for the soil. So I really think, like, because I've heard several times tractors and sensors, but maybe like it's going to be drones flying around with sensors. So I'm just kind of that was my raised hand. Thank you.
I'm sure this is music in the ears of Enrique, who's developing all these smaller, more agile, more automated proximal sensors. All right. There was another point. It was addressed to Mark, but I think it might lead to a little bit of discussion overall, which is, Mark, if you could give some examples of where collaboration between large and small players could or already does work.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's lots of examples, both from the biotechnology fields and also from the precision agriculture fields, where we're working with a number of companies. Very often, in fact, what we end up doing is then providing some venture capital for these companies where we seek good working relationships through our Syngenta Ventures or through, in fact, any of the major industry players are now doing this through their own venture funds. BASF all are operating in a very similar way. We've got some examples. There's a Ukrainian business called Cropio that we have some investment in, and I've been working with them for now 3 or 4 years. They might be a competitor to one of the panelists here. So, you know, there are a few examples where we're working with technology specialists in the hardware, in machinery right now, for example, on what we've been calling sort of optical spot spraying technology, where we significantly reduce the amount of crop protection product used, but we place it much more accurately around a crop or within a crop in order to reduce the weed burden in that crop. So there's quite a few collaborations that we've got there right now, in either in user testing, where we've got linkages to growers and we can use test specific technologies in field, or we do R&D collaborations where we work on you know, the difficult science parts together with skills from outside the business. So, and we're looking increasingly for more and more of these collaborations where we can either put resources in or fund resources to work on specific hypotheses or solutions that we're looking to create.
Thanks, Mark. Dragana, yes, the floor is yours.
Yes, Mark, regarding Cropio, is Cropio leveraging data, like, for example, when it comes to plant immunity, when it comes to DNA further, you know, because this is actually the system, like right now, what I presented is basically a platform that's going to be using satellites, because yes, we see a lot of drones in horticulture, especially going to vineyards. But what we want is basically satellite data going like, and we call that like from, you know, like from universe to DNA and back to stop and restore the ecosystems based on crop protection, you know, knowledge. So this is the thing, like we want to leverage exactly like plant defense responses, this scientific knowledge that can lead to creation of plant immunoboosters, you know, like a next generation of basically something that will replace pesticides. So we want to introduce some new parameters, you know, in a farming game, like plant immunity. Nobody's playing with that, and it makes perfect sense because plants are defending themselves. So
Yeah.
that will reduce, then further going like checking DNA of every pest, and then actually make actually further crop protection strategies based on that. So this is the thing, how we leverage this data, how we, you know, what do we do with this information? And this is where we can say, this is now crop protection. Technology is the driver, yeah.
What we're really talking about is probably plant health rather than crop protection. We're slightly widening out the definition of crop protection to be much more plant health centric, which I think is absolutely right. And in fact, you'll see, you know, within some of our members in CropLife Europe, you'll see the definition of crop protection being moved towards the term plant health. And I can see, you know, that technology solutions like the one you've just described there, fitting alongside some of the technology solutions we've already got, such as the biologicals products that we've got with Valagro, for example, in Syngenta, and the Cropio technology that we've got through scanning and through drone analysis of data, or drone-driven data collection, at least. So yes, I absolutely agree that we're probably not there with that immunotechnology yet, and you might be able to bring that to the plant health arena, but combining all of these pieces is absolutely what we're working on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. I think I would wrap it up here with regards to the exchange around the questions that have been raised. I know Veronica would like to run a poll, or in any case, sort of, enter into this last stage.
There is one question on here, which I think I saw a little bit earlier, which was addressed to me around.
There was one, yes, about concrete ways to enhance crop biodiversity.
I think Vincent mentioned this. This is an area that we are specifically in my team working on, and I know that there are other industry plays around this at the minute. At the minute, quantifying the biodiversity is difficult and expensive because it requires an army of people to go out and count what's there. However, we know that we've been very successful in Syngenta, for example, with our Operation Pollinator initiative in creating mixes that fit along field margins and within non-cropped areas of farms, which significantly boost insect and pollinator numbers. We're also very confident with parts of that pollinator mix where we've advanced it further into developing both pollinator and bird species food mixes as well. And we're now doing this not only just across Europe, but we're doing this worldwide. So we can definitely enhance the biodiversity of animals and insects, and we can enhance the biodiversity of plant species on non-cropped areas of farms, or even within cropped areas by methods of agroforestry, for example. And we're quite confident about the fact that we can now do that. We do need a better way of quantifying it, and we do need a better way of linking that quantification to an agronomic decision-making model so that we can understand more about the potential risk associated with applying a crop protection product to the biodiversity metrics that we've got. And that's where we still have some gaps. That's the piece that we've still got to work on in this biodiversity enhancement and protection model.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to everyone both for raising the questions and raising all these points. I think that it was a very, very rich discussion. So I hand back to Veronica to conclude this meeting.
Thank you very much, Lefteris, and thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Mark, for the last answer. I think the discussion today was a really, really good one, and we could move forward with that, and we could continue longer, but we were already running out of our 2 hours. As I mentioned, today was our last session of PARSEC User and Technology Talks. So that's why I would like to invite all of you, our attendees, and also our panelists, because we have a question to basically SMEs, to all the representatives of PARSEC Ecosystem. What would you like to focus on next? What are your weak points? What would you like to get to know? What webinars would you like to attend? What other meetings with us would you like to attend? You should be able to see it now on your screens. Feel free to choose the one. I know it's a little bit long, but I'm sure you can take a look at that and let us know what are actually the topics you identify as your weak points, and what we should focus on in PARSEC Accelerator this spring with our new webinars and new trainings. Because again, as we did with the user and technology talks, we would like to be open to our sectors, to PARSEC targeted sectors, and have more meetings with you and more interactions with you. We know that the connections we created in the previous user and technology talks, the connections we created will be the long-lasting ones. We'll be in touch with our panelists and with the attendees. So please stay tuned. You have still an option to join our email alerts on PARSEC website. So feel free to do it to be posted about our our new upcoming events. And I think that is all from our side. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today and for joining us throughout this whole User and Technology Talk series. And we're looking forward to meeting you on other events, other PARSEC events. And we hope that you stay in touch with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you. Nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.